Now, what's the resume that he has that tells you that he knows what he's doing to warrant being the head coach?
Yeah, I think the Lions fans should be excited or concerned about their new head coach.
If I'm a Lions fan, I'm concerned.
66 years.
What happened to biting kneecaps, Dan Campbell? What happened to that?
The Lions reminded us they're just another team. They ain't as special as we thought they are.
For the Detroit Lions, the 2024 season ended in absolute heartbreak. A crushing playoff loss to Washington was made even worse by the departure of both of their talented coordinators. Everybody was marking it the step back, the collapse, the closing of the Super Bowl window for the Lions. But while the spotlight has shifted to shinier stories, the Lions have continued winning. Quietly, ruthlessly, harshly, they have been proving that they are as good as ever. And look, this isn't a team on the decline. This is a team who can still win it all. And in today's video, we're going to go over the reasons why and explain exactly how the Detroit Lions are exposing everyone. Now, KRICH crew, we are back with another one. And look, this has got to be one of my favorite hats to throw on when I get to throw on this Lions one. Y'all can't see it, but it's like velvety, it's buttery. Y'all can see that suede on there changing. Look at the suede changing on there. It's clean. This I don't even know where I got from. It says 47, but I think I got it from like Abercrombie or something like that. Something crazy, but I'll try to find the link and drop it down in the comments. Y'all let me know if you want to see it, but as always, before we hop into today's video, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know some videos that you guys want to see made this upcoming week. We got a lot coming up. I mean, and if you are lucky and I do pick your video of choice, I will make sure to pop your screen up right next to me here, or just right in front of my face. Who knows? Hopefully that didn't hurt the mic or anything. But today we have to, but now with all of that out of the way, we have to talk about the Detroit Lions and really just how entering the 2025 NFL season, really, there were a lot of question marks surrounding this Detroit team. Like, despite keeping pretty much all of their skill players, the Lions had lost two influential figures in offensive coordinator Ben Johnson and defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. Add in the fact too that they were coming off of a heartbreaking loss to the Commanders in the divisional round, and things weren't looking great. So there was much speculation about how a team dealing with both disappointment and personnel change would try to find the motivation to go again and do so successfully. And look, when the season got started, some of those doubts did seem to have legs as the Lions fell to the Green Bay Packers 13-27 in a game where Detroit had difficulty generating scoring opportunities, managing just one touchdown. And a lot of people were asking, was this the first sign of that post-Ben Johnson drama? And well, thankfully, they managed to silence a lot of that talk in week 2 as they took on Johnson and his new team, and they absolutely dominated, putting up 52 points while the offense had no trouble getting down the field, where Jared Goff and company finished with 334 yards and 5 touchdowns. It was a game the Lions were always going to be favored to win, but the symbolism of beating their former superstar coordinator with a thunderous offensive display cannot be ignored. From there too, things were moving in Detroit as the Lions put together a run of 4 emphatic wins, and their offense was absolutely humming. And yet, despite another 2 losses to the Chiefs and Vikings, the Lions were playing excellent football on both sides of the ball and found themselves at 6-3 after week 10. That's the thing about this Lions team. Week in and week out, they're still proving that they are one of, if not the best team in the NFL, and really that their offense has not taken a step back like a lot of people thought was going to happen. Like, a lot of people forget, this is still a very good team, and they have pretty much all the exact same personnel they had from last year's team. And I mean, they look very motivated to prove a point that they're still here and they can make a run if they want to. Despite their success in 2025 though, the Lions have flown slightly under the radar, with the national conversation focusing more on perennial Super Bowl favorites like the Eagles and Chiefs, and the big surprises of the seasons like the Colts and Patriots. But look, I think that's the best thing that could have happened to the Lions this year, and I think really it can benefit the Lions in almost kind of not having that media coverage on them, and taking the spotlight off of them isn't going to have as much pressure for them to make a run to the Super Bowl and kind of not fly under the radar, but essentially not be in the main spotlight of national coverage, all these teams, and have as big of a target on their back. Don't get me wrong, they still have that target on their back, but it's not as big as last year where they were, 15-2 or 16, they weren't 16-1. It was like 15-2, I think is what they were. So there's definitely a lot of that pressure that's still on them. but there's also a lot of pressure on teams like the Colts and Patriots to continue doing what they're doing this year with the roster that they have. Like, not having that national spotlight on the Lions is going to kind of almost prove to be a positive, because now the team can just focus on playing the game and not have to worry about all that outside noise distracting them. Like, in terms of what's going on the gridiron, this is clearly still an elite Detroit offense, but for as well as they've played, Dan Campbell still felt there was room for improvement. Beginning in week 10, there have been some changes to the way that the offense is run, which has included Dan Campbell putting more of his fingerprint on the offensive game. It was always going to be an adjustment to bring in a new offensive coordinator after losing Johnson, and their new hire, John Morton, hasn't always managed to live up to those lofty expectations of this Lions organization. So Campbell saw that things weren't always clicking offensively, and he took action in week 10 against the Commanders to rectify that. He decided to take over play calling duties from Morton, and as a result, the Lions had their best offensive performance of the year, exploding for 546 total yards, including 226 yards on the ground. Like, Campbell's play calling reflected his own demeanor, emphasizing a smash mouth running style that worked to great effect, with both Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery cutting through the Commanders' defense. And look, for John Morton, this is definitely not a good sign for his job, because as we saw in 2021 too with, let me look at my notes, it was Anthony Lynn as the offensive coordinator. The same thing happened. Dan Campbell, or whoever the head coach was, I think it was Dan Campbell, yeah. He took over offensive play calling, and Anthony Lynn was then fired right after that happened. So John Morton, you could be looking at the same thing happening very soon to you too if you don't pick it up, brother. Campbell has definitely not indicated for that in the near future though, but he will continue calling the plays, perhaps signaling that Morton's time with the Lions, as I just said, may not be continuing into 2026 in this offseason. But this can only be seen as a good thing for Lions fans, as Campbell has now taken on more responsibility for offensive play calling, and it's worked well in the past. Even from a small sample size, we can get a good idea of exactly what kind of football Campbell wants his team to play. A run-first offense that utilizes their dynamic tandem of Gibbs and Montgomery to go along with a passing offense capable of going down the field in as few plays as possible. He wants to combine his smash mouth running game with play action and some misdirection in the form of trick plays, always keeping his opponents on edge. That's the thing too. One of the things that has allowed this Detroit Lions offense to remain so good is that they've seen very little in terms of outgoing players at key positions. The team is still anchored by Jared Goff, the receiving duo of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, and the Gibbs-Montgomery backfield. Having spent a few years together now too, this offense has synergy that very few others in the NFL have, allowing them to perform at a high level week in and week out. But it's safe to say that the player who represents the Lions under Campbell is Jared Goff, the man who's been there from the first season under Campbell and who has reinvented himself as a Detroit Lion after his career has stalled out with the Rams. Campbell's molded Goff into one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and he has continued to play at that same high level in 2025. Goff's game is all about playing mistake-free football and doing the right things at the right time. He can be aggressive with the ball when that is what the Lions need, and he can see out games by converting important short yardage situations. And yeah, he may not have the strongest arm in the world, but he is accurate and knows how to get the ball to his most important weapons. Goff's favorite weapon though is of course Amon-Ra St. Brown, who has been as consistent a receiver as any since he came into the league. He's arguably the best route runner in the NFL and has seen the ability to break off a big play at any time he touches the ball. He's the tone setter for this offense and provides a veteran presence that the young guys look to for leadership. He looks on pace to have yet another 1,000-yard season and will continue to play a big role as this season does progress. Elsewhere on the receiving front too, we have Jameson Williams and Sam Laporta, two other crucial figures that make this offense so scary for the opposition. Williams is just pure speed, bringing a deep threat to complement St. Brown's more all-around game, and Laporta brings a full toolkit, contributing with his pass and run blocking, as well as being more than capable pass catcher, especially in red zone situations. But look, as we all know, the firepower, it doesn't stop there. As good as those guys are, that doesn't even probably bring up their best weapons on their roster yet. As we all know, the dynamic duo of Sonic and Knuckles, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, bring the best running back threat in the league as they provide a variety of things that the teams need to prepare for. Gibbs brings lightning speed and ankle-breaking elusiveness, a nightmare for any defender in open field. Meanwhile, Montgomery offers punishing power and a downhill running style that's just as tough to contain. Yet he's also deceptively capable of bouncing outside and punishing defenses beyond the hashes. It's been a while since the NFL has seen a backfield partnership as good as this, and the contribution they bring to this Lions offense is so crucial. Since they both joined the Lions in 2023, the Lions have had the second most rushing touchdowns in the entire NFL with an incredible 69. Because they provide such a threat as runners, it opens up the field for the passing attack, and in particular, play action passes, which has been the Detroit bread and butter. But even though you have a great offense, you need to have a great defense to complement that team as well and kind of show out when they need to. I mean, go ahead and ask the Commanders how they felt last week as well. Despite some doubt, the Lions defense has shown that it's capable of winning the games when the offense does stall. This unit is led by Aiden Hutchinson, who looks set to have a career year and has established himself firmly as one of the top edge rushers in the league. He's been the beating heart of the Lions defense, emphasized by the struggles the unit has suffered last year without him. Elsewhere, the defensive core is formed around a young unit with the likes of Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, and Jack Campbell, who all look like they're going to be leaders on this team for years to come. And yes, there were some doubts surrounding the defensive backs and general inexperience of this defense coming into the 2025 season, and taking into consideration the appointment of a young, relative inexperienced defensive coordinator, you could perhaps understand why. But the defense has continued to perform reasonably well, including a surprising near complete shutout of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense in Week 7. The success of the defense thus far has largely been built on an effective run defense, which ranks top 10 in the league in rushing yards allowed and rushing touchdowns allowed. On top of this too, the pass rush has been top form, which has put the secondary in a good position to take the ball away, where they rank in the top 10 with 12 turnovers in 10 games. And look, if the Lions can go deep into the playoffs, the more this defensive unit's gonna have to step up, and whether they can do that does remain to be seen, but this is a unit that has gotten off to a great start and is showing signs of being even better than Aaron Glenn ever put out there. The Lions look like a pretty complete team at the moment, and despite playing in a tough division with some emerging teams, should be considered the favorite. Currently, the NFC North looks like it's going to be very competitive down to the wire, with the Bears emerging as a surprise contender and the Packers still remaining competitive. The Lions look like the most well-equipped team of the three, but with how close the standings are, they will not be afforded the luxury of making many slip-ups. The remaining games against the Packers and Bears will be must-watches and could end up determining which of these three teams gets a bye in the playoffs. As for the rest of the NFC, the Seahawks, Rams, and Eagles seem like the biggest threats to the Lions' road to the Super Bowl, but on current form, it would be hard to say that any team is better than the Lions in the NFC right now. They have arguably the best offense in the NFC, if not the entire league, and a defense that's going to keep them in games and create pressure and turnovers. This team has the makings of being a Super Bowl winner. Add in the recent fact that they are flying under the radar, at least in comparison to recent years, and this could finally be the year that they get over the hump.